Okay, are you recording, Luke?
Yes, I am.
Brilliant. So good morning and welcome to our next training about using data from the electronic application forms, the EEFs. My name is Georg Neuberter. I'm working as head of IT for the Austrian Medicines and Medical Devices Agency. And some colleagues might also know me from chairing the electronic application forms maintenance group or from several other European working groups on IT topics across Europe. So this session today on a sunny Friday, at least in Austria, will try to help you minimizing administrative effort by learning how to automatically extract data from the new application forms. So in our agency, the Austrian agency, we are already realizing this benefit. So if you get in contact with our business colleagues or my business colleagues, then you can also ask them about business experience after that presentation. And I think we gain a lot of benefits. And in 2022, we approximately processed 10,000 electronic application forms automatically and reduce the administrative effort for many of our colleagues in our agency. Today, together with Luke, Noel, and Gianluca from 3 different organizations, but they will introduce themselves a bit later, we set up a presentation how to efficiently extract the data. And when we received your registrations, we were really impressed how many colleagues across Europe are interested in these topics. I would like to say the invitation went viral, as you say in social media language. And we were so much surprised that so many colleagues from different disciplines, from data experts, IT experts, business experts, colleagues from CMDH, etc., are joining today. This is a quite tricky situation for us, and that's why we also changed the agenda a bit. So I'm going to the agenda. Please read the disclaimer and notice it. Please be also informed that the session will be recorded and we will make the recording available. So due to this wide range of expertise in this meeting, we rearranged the agenda a bit and we tried to combine business needs and technical needs in this training. You will see it when we come to the slides that we try to really give business input, but also quite technical input. So we think that all levels of expertise will benefit from the training, but we also say that we will inform you when it becomes really technical. But we recommend that you keep staying because in the real life, when you go into national implementations, your IT colleagues will really need to have business contact so that you really gain all the benefits of this new opportunity. So before the speakers will introduce themselves, some organizational details. First of all, we will have a short break. So if you haven't had a coffee today, there will be a chance in the next 2 hours to get one. After the break, it will become a bit more technical, but as I said before, please try to stay. All what you hear, you will again hear when you work together in your national implementations. Please drop your questions into the chat. We muted everyone because it's better for recording that we have the questions in a written format, and the speakers will try to answer in the chat or will respond during their presentations. For sure, after every section, we will have the chance to go into your questions. Last but not least, please enjoy this training and start dreaming how you might benefit in your agency from this new automatization. So I kindly ask Noel and Gianluca for a short presentation before we go into the topic.
So good morning from my side as well. My name is Noel Diamond. I am a bioinformatician working at the Austrian agency for quite a while now. I believe we have implemented every possible requirement that we had in terms of lifecycle management of medicinal products. And When we got enough knowledge, we started doing projects with EMA, and currently I'm okay. Sorry, please ask to mute yourself as well when you're not talking. Thank you very much. So now we are doing projects with EMA, like the electronic application form. I am product owner there, but usually architect. So I'm trying to look in this case a little bit about the FHIR message standard, how we interchange, how we export electronic application forms and re-import them again at the agencies. And with UNICOM, we have the opportunity to train other people. And we would like to share this knowledge with other NCAs. And this is the first training that we're doing, so welcome everybody. I have my colleague Gianluca here with me, who will introduce himself.
Yeah, thank you, Noel. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this session. My name is Gianluca Risi. I am cooperating with the Spanish agency. I've been doing it since 2015. We started with the import of data contained in previous version of the PDF, the interactive one. And then I've been cooperating also in DADI project or PLM project, working in UNICOM, developing the PDF generator part. So in this project, I've been maybe one of the first consumers of the FHIR message. And yes, I'm here to try to speak you about how to import it.
Thanks, Niall. Thanks, Gianluca. And also thanks, Luke, for the preparation of this presentation and training. And please believe me, I'm aware how much effort this was. Good. So I will start with a short introduction. And this is now really, really for all taking part. So please listen carefully. So first, what's the motivation to organize such a training? So as you know, we have a network strategy to 2025, and we have several announcements, examples from EMA, that we are moving to a more data-driven medicines regulatory network. So this means that the data availability, and I talk about medicinal product data and procedural data, becomes more and more essential in our IT systems. A second motivation is that we are working on the new application forms. So we are moving away from the old PDF technology into a modern state-of-the-art online tool to create application forms. And this provides improved opportunities by utilizing international standards to extract and import data. And the third opportunity and motivation is we are running a project. It's a pan-European project. It's called UNICOM. And together with EMA, we are working on the implementation of new standards. And to help with an example, if you remember on ECDD, it was very cumbersome to, let's say, implement this across Europe. But now we have a very structured way how we handle dossiers. And with ISO IDMP, it's very similar. We will have a very good and efficient way how we handle medicinal product data across Europe in a, let's say, in a common language or common approach. You can find the link to UNICOM on this slide. And if you're interested, there are many more topics in it. Please just visit our website. So please utilize this Friday morning, use this meeting to understand this, and also get technical info how to implement it in your agency. So what is UNICOM? You can also see that these slides are UNICOM branded. We are a consortium of, I think, more than 40 or 50 partners across Europe. And we received funding from the European Horizon project to foster the implementation of this new standard across Europe. So there are many objectives in this call, and we focus on the implementation of IDMP standards in the member states, which is also a legal obligation as stated in the pharmacovigilance regulation. We also want to foster the usage of EMA's SPOR services, so the Substance Product Organization and referential master database. If we focus on medicines authorities, we are 11 authorities across Europe. You can see them in this European map. And these 11 national competent authorities are working together with e-health organizations from the member states, with standardization organizations like ISO, with industry companies, software companies, to achieve the objectives. And there's the vision that we together build compatible IT systems, but also find a common approach on regulatory processes to utilize this new standard and to ensure high data quality, because this high data quality will be needed in multiple future or already existing use cases. For example, in cross-border scenarios, in drug shortage scenarios, in exchanging data between us regulators, or in providing data to common repositories like for SPOR PMS. So we are, in a way, we are building up the infrastructure where many use cases will rely on in the future. UNICOM has multiple objectives. We just focus on one today, and this is introducing ISO IDMP compliant application forms. There are trainings about ISO IDMP. We can also organize a specific one in this UNICOM context, trainings to understand what does this common language mean to us, how do I read these ISO IDMP standards. So if you're interested in this, please also contact us so that we might organize another specific session on this. So at the moment, all our application forms, so application forms for marketing authorizations, for variations, or for renewals, are not compliant to the new common language, to the ISO IDMP standard. And this means when an applicant starts a regulatory procedure, he submits data in a different, let's say, structure. And what we're trying to achieve is that first we modernize technology, getting away from this PDF input form into a new online tool, and to ensure that we receive the data in a structured ISO IDMP compatible way. So this is the objective. And then we have, let's say, a common approach of representation of medicinal product data in Europe. And we will also want to increase the usage of EMA's SPOR services. On this objective, 7 agencies are working. You can see representatives here speaking from Spain, Gianluca, and the Spanish agency. The Austrian agency is contributing as the so-called product owner, together with a product owner from EMA. And we have high expertise and resources from the Netherlands, from Germany, from Ireland, from Sweden, and from Norway. And colleagues are contributing expertise, knowledge, a lot of testing, communication, and for sure it's a best practice how we can work together across Europe. EMA is not a partner of the UNICOM consortium, but EMA took over the real, let's say, development of the online tool. So we have also this partnership with EMA in this aspect. For information timelines, when will it be available on your table? First, we are already live with the new application forms in the first release. And this first release contained the variation forms for centralized authorized products. So this is online since last year. It's working fine. We're having weekly Monday meetings where we talk about the usage, and I think you call it Kinderkrankheit maybe. But in principle, there are no showstoppers, and applicants for centralized products are already using this new opportunity. And we are also in some member states, we are already implementing to import the data from these new forms into the national systems. The second step will be that we, let's say, extend to national authorized products, also, of course, including MRP, DCP, which are national products, and to start a transition period. And after this 6-month transition period, the usage of the variation forms in the new style will become mandatory, and we will delete the old PDF forms from the e-submission website. That's very good. So then in my career, I replaced the Word-based files with the PDF files, and now again the PDF files with this online tool. I wonder what will be next. Maybe ChatGPT will tell us. As a next step, we plan to have a release in Q4 this in Q4 this year, 2023. We will increase the usage of structured data. We will hear a bit more about this in this presentation. And 2024 and 2025, we will have a next, let's say, wave with providing the new application form, and at the end, we will have the renewal form also for the human domain. Just to say so, these application forms and what we are working on are for the human domain, but we can see a lot of, and I would say only synergies with the vet domain. So the vet domain, I think, will also use the same technology. So how does this work today, and what's the change for the future? So what we're doing here in this objective is we are replacing technology and introducing common languages. We are not changing the business processes. Unfortunately, there are so many ideas how we can optimize the business process, how to submit data, how to submit additional data and responses. But we agreed in a network to focus on this first step, replace the technology and introduce the common language ISO IDMP and make usage of EMA-SPOR. So don't be worried. The business process of how submissions will be done or how you will work in your agency doesn't change at all. But it provides new opportunities to minimize administrative effort. So currently applicants fill out the perfect PDF forms. They are already using some information from EMA-SPOR, like substance terms, organization data, and some other controlled dictionary, like root of administration. It goes to regulators, and some regulators already consume the old proprietary data format into their IT systems. Where are we, and what are we trying to achieve? Oh, Noel, the picture didn't work. It's my fault, sorry. So I'm missing some graphics here now. So the to-be status will be, we are replacing the PDF form with a web tool. It's like your e-banking system or like other application system that you know from like maybe flight bookings. We will have a very state-of-the-art application tool where applicants will create the application forms. At the end, when they are finished, they will again produce a PDF readable version. So at your agency, you will still be able to humanly read those application forms. The usage of the SPOR will be increased. And we will also utilize, and that's already an extension, we will also utilize to retrieve master data from SPOR PMS. As you might know, EMA is building up a central common repository for product data. And for example, applicants will be able to select reference products or other information for medicinal products that they need to include in their application forms. So this is new. What will be also new that the regulators that receive this PDF will have data in the form that can be consumed by IT systems. And this, let's say, data package within the application form will be in the new IDMP and FHIR format. And today we really focus on how can I understand this new format? How can technical colleagues extract the data, and how can I then have this data in my IT system without typing the data? So someone sitting in front of the screen, reading the form and typing in data into your IT system. I apologize, some checkboxes are missing in this slide. We will correct when we send out the presentation. I wanted to show where we are already in progress, and we are pending in some of the topics. But we are progressing well in principle in the timelines. So we have the first go live release, as I said, last year in November 2022, and this covers variations of centrally authorized medicinal products. I inserted the link, so if you're interested, then you can open the so-called PLM portal, the Product Lifecycle Management Portal. Half a year ago, this was named Daddy. So if you're missing Daddy, just get used to PLM portal. It's the same. Of course, you be aware, this is something applicants will use. So it's focused on applicants. We regulators, as I said before, the business process doesn't change. We will receive the application forms within the dossier like it is today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, speaking of that, we are all waiting for the next version of PMS going live. When that happens, they are migrating all the XCV MPD products into their system, meaning instead of these 4,000 centrally authorized products, we will have 400,000, more or less, available. That means the PLM portal will also have these products available, and that means we NCAs will now be able to see products there, because right now they're all EMA products. When with the next version of PMS, you will see all the products within your country and be able to play around in the system, create an EF with products of your country and see how that would look like. You could just go to register.ema.org, create an account, or if you probably already have an account, so just get the EF NCA role, create an EF with your country's products and export them to PDF and to FHIR. So with the next version, you will be able to do your own test data if you want, which will be an amazing feature.
Thanks, Noel, for this additional information. And colleagues, I do spoil something at the end or in the middle. We promote a survey, and we will kindly ask you to respond to the survey. And for example, if you're interested in this topic, how to utilize this PLM for you and to play around, like Noel said, then please add also this information into the survey, that we are aware that you would like to have these details. I think I hand over to Noel. Is this correct?
Correct, and I thank you, Georg, very much for the introduction, the motivation, what we're doing. Now, my part will be kind of, today I have a business hat on. So I'm representing the business expert, and Gianluca will be representing the IT expert. And we are going to present the slides and do the training, more or less like that. So we will switch around a little bit. Now, where I will start with is where you can start with, which is references. There is a lot of material already, and this is not the first time we're doing this. So we've done one training already on the overview of the medicinal product, and that was recorded and is available on YouTube. So you can follow the link to the recording to get an overview of the medicinal product. And we did a second training to give you an overview of the variation file message. This is the third training, meaning this is already the advanced course that you're joining. But as we have seen that we have a lot of people coming in from different disciplines, who probably haven't heard the other trainings yet. And for some of you, this topic might be newer than for others. I am going to start at the beginning, and I will give a disclaimer or a warning, more or less, where it will become technical. Now,
sorry,
after this session...
Sorry, I don't know if you are sharing your screen. I'm not seeing anything.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for this information.
We can't see the screen. You have to click on the icon below. You can see the screen.
Give me a... I'm resharing.
It's working well. It's working well, Noel.
It's working well? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so if you have watched the trainings after this training, if you are that interested, then you might even want to give feedback. And there are ways to contribute. They're not easy because some of them are still being set up. We do have the one group that we had for a long time, which is the EF maintenance group, or the group that is tasked with implementing the electronic application forms. So more or less what we're doing here. And I'm the network product owner here. So I'm representing all of you. So if you do have questions, requirements, or want to see something in the message that you want to have different or so, you can always contact me for this. Now, there is the PMS group, where we have 4 member states represented and 4 industry members. You can also contact them. I believe they will publish or have already published who are the SMEs for PMS. So they will be responsible for the product part, although we can also change stuff there. And then, of course, there is UPD. UPD has a head start. So they are the first ones who implemented a FHIR message in production. They are not IDMP compliant, at least not fully. So they have speed, but they might not have all the quality of the product, all the fields that are there. So you can look at that and ask questions in those groups, but be aware that they have a quick solution which works, which is good, but they don't have all the fields that are probably needed. And then if you are more a standardization person, there are 2 things that are quite official, which is the HL7 Vulkan stream. It's called like that. It's just the name that they gave to the stream that focuses on many things, but also the medicinal product parts. So products, ingredients, and so on, they are there. So if you ever want to be hands-on and develop something, they are connected. They're called connectathons. So the FHIR community meets several times a year, and you can join that. And you can join this stream in order to contribute and try out new implementations. If you are more on the standardization and not so much on development, there is the BRNR group at HL7 that handles the standardization itself. So they decide which element goes into which, well, they decide. Nobody decides there, it's all a voting process, but they at least create most of the suggestions, and is the kind of official group from HL7. All right, if you want to start implementing, this is the first thing that you look at, which is the ISO IDMP EU implementation guide from EMA. My dear colleague Veronica and Marcus are writing this, and we usually annoy them with things that we want in there because we need them in the EF. So they are very kind to add whatever we need for the processes of the authorization of the medicinal product. And they are now in the version 2.1. And they have this famous page 30 of the chapter 2, which shows you the entire ISO model. The good thing there is you don't actually have to pay for the ISO diagram. If you do want to see the ISO standards themselves, you do have to have the license for it. Not so for the EUIG. You can just download it from the website of EMA. The link is in the presentation. Now, it explains every field that we have in detail from a business point of view. So very good place to start. If you come from the other direction, if you come as a developer, you do need basic FHIR knowledge. Now, to get familiar with FHIR, you can look at the latest version, which is build.fhir.org. There is a huge section documentation. Again, the good thing about FHIR, and probably the reason why it was chosen, is because it is free and freely documented online. You can look at every element, drill down every rabbit hole, and see exactly how what is implemented. We today are working on the version 4.6. So this is not exactly the latest build version. So this is the version from May 2021. We are a little bit ahead of PMS, who are working with the version 4.2, which is a bit older. The goal is that maybe end of this year, we are still waiting for 5.0 to release. Once this is done, we will plan together with PMS the haul to the next major version. So in the end, everybody should be on what is built today. I have added the link, so you can just click on this to see where we usually land, which is the medicinal product. This is the start. The details. Now, on all this goes probably to business analysts, requirement analysts, people who are in between business and development. So still kind of IT, maybe product owners. For you, I have prepared a list of all the fields and all the mappings, and I have linked this. This was updated yesterday. So some of you already know this because this has been published for 1.5 years, more or less. No, just a year. But there is a new version. And same goes for the data models of the variation message and the data model for the product message. So have a look at it. Everything is published now. Now, to go into the details. It is a huge message, and explaining everything in the 2 hours that we have is going to put people fast asleep. So what I did is I have chosen 10 elements for you, 10 elements that I believe are essential when you do imports of the message for the product and are easily explainable in an hour, more or less. Now, how did I choose these? These are 10 elements that are currently available in the PLM portal. So you don't have to wait for any releases or for any data releases or so. You can already see those elements. And when you export the EF, or when you as an NCA receive an exported EF, these elements are inside the XML already. And we will show you today how to get them out. The elements I have chosen are things that we, for example, use for process control at the Austrian agency, in addition to some variation elements that I'm not focusing today. I've already shown in one of the previous presentations. So today we will look at, from the medicinal product, how to get the PMS ID, which is the stable unique identifier of the product, the MRP DCP CP number, the ATC code, the authorized dose form. From the product, we will also look how to get the full name and the language of the full name. I am not going to show the invented name or all of the name parts. The main reason for this is data quality. So we've looked at the current XCV MPD. We've looked at what EMA has in their procedural management systems. And the only thing that is reliable is the full name. The invented name may or may not be there, depending very much on the quality of the product. So also in the portal, we have chosen to go the way to only show the product full name. Then we will go to the authorization details. Those are usually not part of an MAA form, but inside a variation, you already know these things. There will always be an MAH. So MAH is important because this is the organization that is submitting the message to you. Can be by somebody assisting the EMH, but the MAH is the responsible. We will show you how to get the MA number and the authorization country. This can be tricky because these same these same authorization details can also be on the package. So we will show you how to get the package. The way to identify the package at the moment is only really the package size. That's all that will help you. And then we will have a look at the ingredient. The ingredient being the most complex thing. Doable is the name. The name is easy. The name of the substance of the active ingredient. And more complex is going to be the strength, which is the last thing for today. Now you all know the ISO model because this, I believe, has made the rounds. These are the entities that you need for these 10 elements or top 10 attributes, which can be a little bit complex, but I want you to not fear this. But I am still starting from the ISO model because this is where I hope to pick up everybody. This is what you know. And when we move to FHIR. And now FHIR is an implementation of ISO, meaning ISO is the theory, the theoretical stuff. But the FHIR model is the actual thing, how to transmit. And the first people who tried to interpret ISO and put everything into neat packages was FHIR. Now, to get all these 10 elements, you actually only need 4 FHIR resources. And that's a good thing. So this is also why I've picked those 10, because getting 4 of these numerous resources that they are may not be that frightening for people who do this the first time. So to get the IDs, the name and the ATC code, all you need is the medicinal product definition. To get the package product, so the pack size, all you need is what is called the package product definition. To get the different authorization details, so MA number, country, and holder, what you need is the regulated authorization only. And if you do need the address of the MAH, you will get the organization itself. But if you don't, and you just need the name, it will be enough to get the regulated authorization. And for the ingredient, all that you need is the ingredient. It's actually just called ingredient. I don't know, it's not called ingredient definition. So it's the ingredient, it has a substance and it has a strength that you can get inside that if you wish so. Now, I've said a word that IT people might know, but for business people, I mean, resource. What's a resource? Managers would say a resource is a person. IT people know a resource is a thing that you can grab by service. For FHIR, a resource is an element that bundles up data into a neat little package that you can send around. So the resource is the thing that is the minimum I don't know, package that you can send from one agency to another, from an applicant to an agency, from EMA and so on. So whenever you use the FHIR format, everything is bundled into resources. And inside those resources, you will find the data elements. So if we take, for an example, the PMS ID, it is inside the resource. So PMS ID from the medicinal product, it is in the resource medicinal product definition. It has identifiers that are called identifiers. And it contains not only the PMS ID, but also the MRP DCP number. In the future, it will contain what we know as there is another product, the MPID, so the MP ID. We don't have that one yet, but when it comes along, it will be there. And it contains an element that is called classification. Now, classification classifies your product. And one way of classifying is the anatomical classification, which is the ATC code. So even though an XML can have thousands and thousands of lines, what we're looking for today is just those 4 resources that I mentioned, and you start off with the medicine product. So we want to take away the fear of fire. It's not burning as bright as it is dangerous. Oh, no, sorry, the other way around. It's not as dangerous as it's burning bright. So the way we do this and the way we represent master data is starting off with the PDF, because the PDF is the thing that you know. Now, this is targeted to the business and the domain experts. So there are 3 ways that the business can understand data and how it is represented. And then there are 2 ways for IT experts that data is represented that we will focus on today. So we start off with the PDF that you know. You have, for example, your products listed there, your present and proposed changes listed there. And then this is just text in a PDF rendered. Behind that, this is actually data inside a structure. And the structure is the first thing a requirements analyst or a business analyst needs to understand. Ideally, I would say even somebody from business should understand a little bit the structure behind the product. Why? Because in the end, you have to tell your IT guys, look, this is the element that I need for my process. This is the element I need to see on my screen. And it is part of the product, it is part of the package and so on. So the more you can give your IT colleagues, the easier it is to collaborate. So this model is kind of the in-between that you both can know. After that, the representation in FHIR is for 2 roles to know, which is the requirements analyst and the developer or architect. These 2 roles should talk to each other with my business colleague told me he wants to have the PMS ID, but I know it's actually inside an element called identifier. Please look it up, and it has the system and so on. And then it gets technical. Then you can see text and a lot of text and thousands of lines of codes, which we call the XML representation. It is inside the PDF, embedded, kind of hidden, but you can get it out if you just click on the left-hand side on the little attachment thing. And once you have that, we want to show you different ways to get the data. One, and the one that we're showing today, is XPath. XPath is a technology in XML that allows you to extract specific data from elements in XML. Now, before we go actually into these details, there is one more thing I want to show you. And this is kind of intermission, but I want both business and IT people to understand this, which is what we call the provenance, or the present and the proposed. So inside the variation form, there is the present and proposed section that you probably know. Now this is changing a little bit because we're changing to IDMP, we're changing to master data. We have more structured data. We have less free text and more possibilities to actually select the things that you want. In the past, if you want to change an ATC code, you just write it as free text in the present and proposed. But in the future, you go to the PLM portal, you see this neat little screen where you say, okay, I want to have the LO free, and then you select a specific ATC code. And this gets automatically shown in the PDF in the present and proposed. If you selected one of these products in the PDF, it will show your product name. If you haven't had the present, it will just show this is a new code. And in the proposed, it will show the ATC code. Nobody has actually written this. This is done automatically by just selecting things. It also means in the background, this is not a text element, but it is a reference to a specific code inside the XML, meaning a system can read this and doesn't need to interpret if maybe it's not ATC code, but people just write ATC also. So IT knows exactly what the element is and can do things with that. You can feed it to workflow engines to send tasks around based on the ATC code. You can show it on the screen, etc. And this will happen eventually with all the product fields. ATC is just there already. So the provenance is this very complex thing that we have tried to show in an easy way. A provenance is complicated to generate, but once it's there, you get it, and you can see and understand what the change is in my application. If the applicant changes just a text, it is very easy. It just contains a rich text, so it can be bold, it can be a table, and it contains pictures. And you can take these and show them in your system. Difference from today, it is no longer just text. You do have to show rich text. And that's a little bit more complicated for IT people, but it is worth it because you have the pictures in line. You don't have the pictures afterwards, which is great. The second one is an organization change. So you cannot just have rich text and pictures, but you can also have an OMS link. And the third one is the product change. The product change is the one that I've shown before. And it will always say, okay, what happened to this? Is it a new ATC code, an update to an existing one, or is it removing one? Same for package, for ingredient, for whatever. It has the information, what was it before, and it has the information, what is it now? And it is going to show this by linking in the data and enabling it to show you on the screen. Now, this is what I say a model, and Georg was so kind enough to show this little IT expert slide. So this is how you talk to each other, where the element is. We start from what we know as is the task on the right-hand side, which is the variation. You go to the scope, which is, for example, C113 or so, and then you have either your text change, your organization change, or your product change. And your product change links to an actual medicinal product. Why do we do this, and why does it look complicated? Because in the future, the system will log automatically any change an applicant does to a product. There is no possibility anymore that an applicant changes something that is not part of the scope of the variation. You can say, this is my scope, and change something completely different as an applicant, but the system will log it. And it will show the change. So if you say, I'm doing an ATC code scope, but you change your device, the system will show a change to the device and will show the present and proposed fields of that device or any other medicinal product part. And this is why we implemented a quite complex system to log these changes. This is just the opportunity that we had. We saw it and we took it. I'm not going to go into the XML details of this because it's not one of the top 10 fields. So today, and the training, I'm sorry, the training hasn't even started. This is all just understanding what it is about. So when we do start the how to extract, what you will learn is understanding a little bit how the IDMP is implemented. Where are these fields? How do you get to them? How do I read this in FHIR? How does it look like in XML, and where are these elements? And how do I extract them using XSL and XPath? Now, the target audience of the next slides are IT experts. And this is not a warning. This is a recommendation. So as a business expert, you might feel slightly lost in some of these things. And we recommend, if you are just purely business and are not interested in any models, in any, how does it go from the PDF to the XML, you can use the next 5-minute break to think about if you still want to stay. But if you are a requirements analyst, you will still not always understand everything, but it is good to also see the IT view of things. So we will do a 5-minute coffee break before we go into the details, because this is gonna be, well, you have to think to follow and concentrate, and we want to be have everybody at their full attention. And the first thing that we will start is the basic on how to read FHIR and how to read XPath. When we say basic, we mean like if you remember in university where the professor says this is a basic introduction to something, and then it wasn't basic at all. So I'm definitely meaning that thing. If you have any questions up until now, stay and ask them. We will continue in, I would say, 5 to 6, 7 minutes. And hi, Georg.
We can resume at 11.
And let's resume at 11.
Thank
I
you.
would say.
Yeah. So let's resume. If you have any questions during the break, type it into the chat bot. Type it into the chat. The bot will answer.
Yes, the bot.
And we really recommend, please don't be afraid. Join us after the break again. We will really explain how does it look like in the PDF, where is this information, but also to the technical colleagues in this meeting, how can they extract this information? And you really need to talk together in your agency. So join the second part. We will come back at 11. So this is Gabe speaking again. I hope you are back and could enjoy a short break, not with emails, but also with some coffee. For the second part, which will be very operative, and you will see that you can really utilize information that will be presented. You can copy paste it. And if you want, you can have your first export already this afternoon, because there are already examples in the common repository for centralized procedures. And if you're interested, we got a list from EMA where from or for which products we have already received the new electronic application forms. So who is interested in this, we can send you a procedure number. You can go into the common repository, grab the application form, and already play around with the information that you received now from Noel. And so I hand over to you. Noel, we are quite good in timing. We have 1 hour to go, and I propose that we plan to stop at 45 so that we have sufficient time for, let's say, a final question in this meeting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you too. So I welcome you back, and I will now hand over to my dear colleague Gianluca Risi for the basics, how to read FHIR and how to use XPath. Thank you, Gianluca.
Thank you, Noel. And hi again, everyone. Welcome back to this new part of this session. In this part, we will see how to read FHIR and how to use XPath to do it. I hope I will try to speak in a simple way so that any one of us can get an idea about it, even people that are not IT people. So let's start from what FHIR is. As Noel said, explained very well before, FHIR is a standard that is used to interexchange data about healthcare realities. It has been published by HL7, and the first line quotes what HL7 says in its website. It is basically a set of rules that have to be followed to interexchange data about electronic healthcare information. And as Noel said before, data is organized in resources. A resource is can be seen as simply as a container of information. The information contained into a resource is logically related to a business entity, for example, a medicine or a package or a substance. And a resource contains simple properties that are scalar properties, for example, text or numbers or dates, for example, an identifier, complex properties that are containers of simple properties, and FHIR calls them backbone elements. For example, a package element inside a packaged product definition resource. And then the most important, I think, references to other resources. Via the references, it's possible to build a graph of resources and interaction among them. That is the reality we need to represent in a FHIR message, for example, in the variation FHIR message we are speaking about in this session. For programmers or developers, a resource can be seen as an object type declaration. That is a collection of properties and data inside it. And the idea of using FHIR as a standard allows parties to communicate and interexchange data, as Noel said before, in a structured way. So let's see now some basic concepts about FHIR types. One of the FHIR types is a codable concept. In this slide, you will see on the left part literal description of each concept, and on the right side, an example of it in the XML message. As I said before, a codable concept is an element that allows to specify a code of a property of a resource in terms of a classification system. That is, for example, that could be, let's say, color, the color we code blue with respect to the system that is a list of possible colors, a dictionary of possible valid values. In case of our message, the system that is the dictionary of possible values is almost always an RMS list. In this case, you can see the example of the domain property of a resource referring to the domain concept that reads from the list whose ID is the one contained into the system element, and the code is the one that is ended with 12. That means human use. That is one of the possible values of the domain. The next element is an identifier. Identifier is some sort of similar to the coding value, but the difference is that in this case, the value can be any possible value, as opposite to the code that is always a value of a dictionary of predefined values. In case of an identifier, for example, a PMS ID, as I said, it can be a value, an arbitrary value. Codable concept and identifier share the system attribute. That is the system against which the code or the identifier is specified. And then the other very used element inside our FHIR message is references. A reference is a possibility to jump from a resource to another one. Typically are in the form of resource type / resource ID. In this case, you say, in this example, you can see a medicinal product definition reference. So its value is medicinal product definition, that is the name of the resource type, and then / and the ID of this reference. Almost always in the message, the references are used via the subject element. For example, a packaged product definition, as it is in this case, as a subject reference pointing to the medicinal product the package is associated with. How can we consume a FHIR message? We saw basically two different alternatives. The first one, we called it FHIR agnostic approach. That is, since a FHIR in one of its two possible physical representations that are JSON and XML, considering the second one, a FHIR message is an XML document, then let's try to consume it as an XML document, being FHIR or not. That is, we don't use any specific technology tied to FHIR. So we will consume a message like any other XML document. We will use one of the multiple technologies that exist since a lot of years to consume XML document, all technologies whose name starts with X. And concretely, we will use XPath to query and extract concrete data from the XML document we are processing. Another possible alternative that we called FHIR-aware would be use some library or some technology that is FHIR specific. There are several alternatives, technologies of this type that can be used at least in Java and in Microsoft .NET technology. In this case, we would handle the resources in an object-oriented way, and we would query for specific data using objects or object properties. And we went the first way. This is why here we are speaking about XML and XPath. And we propose to share the expertise we gained with all the network, the entire network, so that this knowledge can be can spread across among us, and yes, help any one of us who can need it. About strategy number 2, here there are some links about libraries that can be used to manipulate the bundle in a FHIR aware way. And yeah, you can follow those links to land to those content sites. So as we said before, we have the document. We need to extract information from it, and we decided to use XPath to do that. What is XPath? This is a technology that is used to query elements inside an XML bundle. Very important to be able to write an XPath query and execute the query so that you can obtain the result. An XPath interpreter is needed. The good thing is that there are a lot of libraries to do that, and there is at least one in any technology you may choose to process the message. In terms of rules, some basic ones. An XPath, all the elements inside an XML document always belong to a namespace. This is the first rule to keep in mind. To get to a node or to indicate a node, you must use the node name. We will see an example just after. If you want to decide to specify a root of an element inside the document, you can concatenate the name of all the ancestor elements and separate them with the / symbol. And then if you want to target an attribute, you will point to it using its name, but you must precede the name with an @ symbol. And then the good thing of XPath, maybe the most useful one, is the possibility to filter content of the document by using the square bracket syntaxes. And also XPath provides some functions that can be used to manipulate text or to obtain metadata information of the document, like the 2 that are listed there, but there are plenty of them. And the last thing to point out is that there are several versions of the specification, and depending on the technology you choose to work with it, maybe you will be tied to a concrete specification. In this slide, the last entry is a link to the Wikipedia entry regarding XPath that can be a good starting point to learn about it. I want to show you XPath working live at runtime, so especially people who has not knowledge of IT stuff can sense what XPath is. So to do that, I created a simple XML document that you can see now on the screen. This is an XML document that contains a root element. As you know, or if you don't know, you should know that an XML document always contains just one root element. That can be not less than one, neither more than one, just one. And then this element can have an arbitrary structure inside. In our case, the element is called root and has as a second level of a hierarchy a collection of artist element. Each artist element has an attribute called name that in business language would contain the name of the artist the element refers to. And each artist has a list of albums inside. So let's see how to get this information about by using XPath. Sorry, I need to go a bit faster. So I will take the content of our example, I will put it inside this parser. This is the interpreter that is linked from the slide. And let's try to take the name of the artist. So I will put root / artist / and since I want the name, I need to put a name attribute. As you can see, the parser parses the document and gives me the name of the two artists that are inside. If I want to search for the albums, you will see this is a very important thing of XPath, that it flattens all the albums of all the artists in a single list. So if you want to have the title, you can do like this. The last thing I want to show you is how to filter. I just want the albums of the artist Pink Floyd. So I will use the square brackets and say that the name of the artist is Pink Floyd. And if everything is written good, you will see how XPath filters. So let's get back to the presentation. And let's see how we used how we organized in our XSLT all the information we need. That is, all the lists, URL, and all the RMS codes are embedded into variables so that the code is easily can be easily read and maintained. We did the same with the identifiers, and all those elements will be used in the queries that you will see just after. I will give the floor back to Noel so that we can continue with how to extract information by using XPath. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gianluca. This was the basic intro that you would otherwise have to Google and spend an hour on YouTube videos if you want to get started with this. Thank you very much, Gianluca. Just one last comment on RMS. So we are using a lot of RMS lists. Nearly everything is in RMS, and I'm saying nearly. There are some things that are not there, and they're called systems, and we're going to use them a lot in the next slides. And a system is a kind of a list or a kind of an attribute to identify something that you need to know, which is why this slide is important. It looks very technical, but it has all the things that are not in RMS, and you need to know those because there is no other way of knowing them. You, of course, always can reference back to that slide if you're actually doing implementation. Now, the guide of extracting information is using how I've showed that we represent master data. Now, we will start with the PDF. Actually, we will start with the PLM portal, then go to the PDF, show how it looks there. Then we will show how to find it in the model, how it looks like in FHIR, how the XML example looks like, and what the XPath is. The first three a business expert will understand, the second two an IT expert will understand. First, I want to show you just a brief glance at the full model that you don't need to understand, but I want to give you a context of where we are. The full model I've presented in a previous presentation already. So we are today inside, well, this is the full model, the medicinal product part, the package part, the ingredient part, the device part, and the authorization part. Now, we are focusing only on very specific areas today, which are the 4 resources that I mentioned that we need. There is a lot of other information in the XML, and if you want, you can look at this, but we just can't present it in the time that we have. We, of course, have the knowledge to do all the others as well, and if there is such an interest, you can mention this in the survey that we will have the link. Now, we will go into the details of these 10 product fields, and we will start with the PMS ID, and we will focus on the medicinal product a little bit longer, just that you understand how we are showing this in the slides and how this training is built. And we will go faster once we go to the other areas. But we want to show the first one with a little bit more explanation. So if we don't make it in time, you can just look at the slides of the others. And when you do the extraction, it always works the same way. Now I am jumping into the first part, which is the medicinal product and the PMS ID. As mentioned before, I'm starting with the PLM portal. Now, these slides will always look the same, and there are 4 sections, and each of them have about 4 slides. And it starts with the PLM portal, so you can see the PMS ID, the authorized dose form, and the MRP DCP number. PLM portal, you will have them in the field of the product, stating authorized dose form, MRP DCP, and PMS ID, just when you select your product. In the variations PDF, at the moment, we only show the pharmaceutical form. The MRP DCP number and the PMS ID are not actually shown in the form, but they are in the background of that product in the XML. As we are still implementing the NTA form, these fields have no value or were not required by NTA, so we're not showing them. In FHIR, this is inside the identifier. So identifier is a thing that we use throughout the entire XML. Nearly everything has an identifier, but it has a lot of attributes that we're not using. What we are using is the system and the value. Now, the system of an identifier, in this case, you have to know, this is the list that we've shown before. For PMS ID, you need to know that it's called PMS ID, otherwise you will not find it. If you look for a list, the system will always be the link to RMS, RMS being the link from SPOR, the referential management service. The value is something that you can read, which is at least making it a little bit readable. Now, the challenge is not just to get these 2 fields, but also on how to actually get to the medicinal product itself. And all right, so, but this we will show in a moment. Next up, I will show ATC code. This is the example I've used before. In the PLM portal, you select the ATC code from a list. In the PDF, we automatically render that in the present and the proposed section. In the FHIR specification, it is called classification and not ATC code. That's a bit weird, and it is a codable concept. Codable concept is just kind of, you can think of it as RMS term of a specific RMS list. Now, the codable concept will tell you which list and what the term is and what it looks like. In this case, it is the list ATC code human, and it has a specific ATC code and so on. The product name, so we are focusing on the full name. In the PLM portal, when you select your products, you will see the product full name in the first column. We are not showing the invented name, as mentioned before, and we're doing the same for the PDF. We are always going to show and extract the full name because it contains the invented name, the dose form part of the name, and the pharmaceutical form of the name. In FHIR, this is inside a name element and has a field called product name that we are using. It has a lot of other fields that we are not using. For example, the type is completely irrelevant. FHIR is larger than what we need. So you can get lost a little bit. You have to ignore quite a lot of elements. We are also talking to FDA and to other health organizations. They are all using FHIR. Even Apple does and Microsoft does. Your iPhone can read FHIR. That's why it contains attributes that we may not need. And that's an example of it. It has the language that we do use, but we're only using the language in our case. The name ports, as I said before, we are ignoring for now. Now, to find a specific product, this is the challenge, and that you don't need to see the full model that we've seen before. This is the way to go. You go from the top. So I'm handing over to you, Gianluca, just in a moment. I'm just explaining the path you need to follow this one time. You are starting with the resource of the variation. You follow it with a one-to-n relation that's called task product list. You find your medicine product, and then inside that you have the name of the country. Now, Gianluca will explain the XSL that we're using to get this, and then the XPath to reach the actual element.
Yeah, thank you, Noel. So in the table, in the below part of the slide, you will see 3 columns. The important column is the second one, the one in blue. The first one is specific of the technology we used, that was XSLT. I am pretty sure that every XPath interpreter in any technology is able to store intermediate results in variables. In our case, the variables were the ones that are listed in the first column. And the idea was to put inside those variables intermediate results that can be then reused to make other queries. This is a good strategy. I would advise you to follow this strategy so that you will have a lot of short controlled XPath routes, easily maintainable. Maybe your system will be a bit more memory consuming, but will go faster as if it was another way, and for sure it will be more maintainable. So having said that, the first line is how to get the variation task. That is the first square in the diagram in the upper part of the slide. So the path is starting from the root of the document. The root element of the FHIR message is called bundle. That is a resource, by the way. And then it has 3 segments root up to resource that is common for all the resources. And then the last segment has the name of the resource type. For example, if the resource is a task, will end with task. So the first root is the pointer to the task that is contained into the bundle. The square brackets 1 says that we want the first task contained into the bundle. But if the bundle, if a correct one, it will only contain one of them. So if I get the reference to this task inside a variable called variation task, then I can use it in the second row of the table, in the third row of the table to find things that it contains. Let's go before on the second row, that is all the products contained into the bundle, that is all the resources of type medicinal product definition. This is the same as in case of task, but we changed the name of the resource. That collection called all products will contain all the medicinal product definition contained into the bundle, not only the ones who are the products affected by the application, but also, for example, orphan products or parallel products and so on. So if we want to filter only the products affected by the application, we need to use, as Noel said before, a list of affected products. That is, yeah, thank you, Noel. The list that Noel is pointing now with the pointer, the mouse pointer, to take the collection of the reference to those products. And then we can use in the fourth row those list of references to filter among all products only the ones that are whose ID are contained into this this list. I said before, maybe you remember, maybe not, that references always go in two, there is always a route with two segments. The first one is the type of the resource, and the second one is the ID of the resource. By using this concat, we are building the route of the medicinal product ID, that is the reference, by using the ID contained inside the all product element. With this magic, more or less understandable, we will have inside the affected product variable shown in the first column the list of only the medicine that are affected by the application. And then among those products, we need to choose one, and we can use any criteria we want. For example, take the first one of the list, or take a specific one that has the PMS ID equal to X, Y, Z. The first point of the last row is the first method, that is, take the first one of the collection, and the second one is more specific and maybe more realistic, and give me the one who has the ID I want. So after having made all these steps in product, we will have a concrete product resource. And finally, we can query it to obtain what we want. That is PMS ID. We would use the first query. And if you compare the route on the left part of the slide with the position of the element inside the medicinal product definition on the right, you will see that there is a correspondence from the from the route and the segments we are going through to get to the value. That is, starting from product, I am speaking about the route now. Starting from product, go to a child element called identifier that has to have a system element with a value attribute equals to identifier system PMS ID. When you get it, please take its value element, and from this value element, take its value attribute. So the returned value is the one that is marked in yellow in the example on the right. In case of MRP, DCP, CP number, the query is the same. The only thing that changes is that the attribute value of the system element used to filter the identifier collection is another one. It's not PMS ID, but is MRP CP ID. You can note that the first one is a variable. The one from PMS ID is a $$ something, and the second one is an HTTP blah, 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 blah route. This is because since we don't use this field inside the PDF, as Noel said before, we don't have a variable for it. So we use the constant value as is it. And then in case of authorized DOS form, there are two things since it is a coding element, we can query, or we can be interested in querying two things that are the actual code of the authorized DOS form and its display name. So the two queries are almost the same. The only difference is that in one case, we are taking the value attribute of the code element, and in the second case, we are taking the value attribute as well, but this time from the display element. You can see the correspondence from the roots to the examples in. Yeah, you can see that what varies from one to another is just that in one case we go to code and the other one we go to display, but the rest of the roots are the same. So in this example, we will have solution for an injection as a display value, for example. And then,
yeah, just to mention, this is what we introduced in the XML message to make it more readable. Before we had only the RMS code in there, but even in our own tests, we realized it is useful to also have the text in there. So you don't actually have to look up RMS if you don't want to. You can just show the text of the term, because it will always be contained.
Well, I would add that we did the same for lists, because we added an extension
exactly
that describes that gets a label of this system value that is displayed in a friendly and understandable way. So the other elements that we get from product, ATC code. We have two classification systems for ATC, the RMS1 and the WHO1. The two of them are siblings inside this XML structure. And the difference is that, once again, what changes is the system. Because please remember, a coding is always this element as this property according to this classification system. In this case, we are using two classification systems. So we have two different URLs for the system value. But in both cases, we are interested in the code value. So in this example, we have RMS code that is a lot of numbers ending in 25. And in case of WHO is L03AB11. And just for your curiosity, in this case, we are speaking about page interferon alpha 2A. In case of name, that is the fifth point of this bunch of roots. As Noel said before, a name is not just simply a string, but is a string contextualized inside the context that has, for example, a language. So you can have multiple names inside the bundle, and each of them associated with a language. In this case, as you can see, the two queries for English and German are the same. The only thing that changes is the code, the value attribute of the code element, of the coding element inside the language element. One is for English and the other one is for German. There is an RMS list in SPOR that lists all the languages and all the IDs for each of them. So in this case, if we make a query for English, the result is the one shown on the screen. And I think that's it.
Yes, that's it. So this is how what we are showing, and the following slides will all work the same. So if you understand this, you will understand the rest of the presentation. But you can always look it up, and some of the things that are in here are very code specific, so you may just want to copy paste things or look it up later. We will show the same, just a little bit faster for the rest of the fields. In this case, MA number, MA country, and MA holder. In the user interface, you can find them also inside the product selection. In the PDF, you will find them in section 2. And in FHIR, you will find it in the regulated authorization that has the subject of the product or the package. So it can be either or, depending if you're in Italy and Portugal, or if you're in Germany and Austria. Some countries will authorize on package level and some will authorize on product level. There is the link to the holder. So we will see in a moment how that looks like. And we're using the region element to state which member state the product belongs to. Now, again, we are starting from the task. We're going to the product. This doesn't change. And then we have the packages. The packages have the pointer to the medicinal product. And the authorization can then point either to a package or point to a product. If you want just the fields that we were talking about, you stop at the authorization. If you also want to have the address of that MAH, you need to get one step further and go to the organization element, because we are keeping this redundant. If you're good enough with the log ID and the name of the organization, you will look it up in OMS yourself. You don't need to actually look at FHIR.
So once again, same as case before, we need a list of preliminary steps to get to a concrete authorization. So the first row of this table shows how to get all the, once again, all the resource of a same resource type, in this case, regulated authorization. So all regulated authorization variable will contain all the regulated authorization entities contained into the bundle that can be or can be not marketing authorization. So the second row filters this set called all regulated authorizations by searching inside. You can see the square brackets that mean filter, and search for regulated authorization of type marketing authorization. That the query specifies the system value, that is the list of all the regulatory entitlement types, and then the code inside this list that has to be marketing authorization. After that, in all marketing authorizations variable, we will have only the marketing authorization entities. And then we can query for a concrete one. For example, the first one associated to a given product. So in this case, the filter is, I want the regulated authorization that has its subject / reference / value element equals to the product we took before ID. So we filter and we take the first one of them. There should be, I think, always just one of them, but we filter and we take the first one. To do the same for packages, it is the same, but instead of taking the product ID, we would take a package ID. So at the end of the last two steps, we will have either a product marketing authorization or a package medical authorization. So let's take some of its attributes. Please, Noel, thank you. So the example goes using product MA, but for the package is the same. So point 6, authorization number. It is, once again, an identifier that has a system value equals to marketing authorization number. And once you get the identifier, you take its value attribute of its value element. And yeah, once again, we have root and example in XML. Authorization country, starting from the marketing authorization, we will go through region, coding, code, and value. If we want the RMS code, and if we want the country name, we will use display element. We will query display element instead of code element. And here we have an example for Kingdom of Spain, and it's an RMS code. Marketing authorization holder. As Noel said, if we just want its name and its location ID in OMS, we don't need to jump to the organization resource because those two pieces of information are already contained inside the holder element of the regulated authorization. So we will go to the holder element and query for display for the organization name and lock ID, an identifier of a concrete system for OMS lock ID. And yeah, important to remark what the last note says, that we replicate into the message holder information for both for marketing authorization, both for products and for packages.
Alex, we ask you to mute your phone if you're not talking. Thank you.
Noel, we can jump to the next slide.
Yes. The package size. Let's try to do the other slides in 4 minutes. The package size you will find when you select the packages in the portal. Georg, could you please find the person talking and mute them? I think you can do this by right-clicking on them. Thank you very much. And then in the PDF, at the moment, you can see them in the present and proposed. We do print the packages. If not all packages are selected, we print the specific package that was, and we do this by stating the package size. In FHIR, this is the package product definition contained item quantity. There are several quantities in the package, and they are easily confusable. The contained item quantity is the one that we're using to show the pack size. The path is very simple this time because you've already actually gotten the packages when you checked for the regulated authorizations before. Gianluca?
Someone muted me. So in this case, once again, list of steps. We start for all the resources of type package product definition, the first query. Then we select all the packages of a given product by filtering the collection obtained in row 1 by saying that the package has to have a subject / reference / attribute value equals to the ID of the product we want the package associated with. And then in the list of packages, we take the first one. So those are the two queries for take numeric value and unit, because all the information is always two fields. For example, 10 milligrams or 1 bottle or whatever. And as Noel remarked before, there are several quantities contained inside the package element. We just need the contained item quantity element. It's the only one we need to consider. And the one that is grayed out or purpled out and with the no, we need to ignore it. Now we are muted, Noel.
Yeah, that one would be the size, well, the amount of things inside that package. So it's a different attribute. You may want that as well, but don't confuse the two. The last one is the active substance. The active substance is, first of all, the name is the easy part. It is shown when in the portal. You can use it to filter. It is shown in the PDF, and it is in FHIR. Inside the ingredient, there is a node or backbone element we call substance, and that is the code. Now that code is, depending on which version you are, it might reference the SMS ID, or it might actually reference a substance. I believe even if it does reference a substance, it will still have the code and the name of the substance in that reference, which is why you don't have to follow it. If you do follow it, you might find a substance definition that has things like type of the substance and so on. You don't actually need that, so you can just stay inside the ingredient. Now, there are 3 paths to get an ingredient, and the easiest one is to go to to have your medicinal product, look at all the ingredients, and use this shortcut that we created. That is an ingredient subject extension that doesn't exist in the standard. We added that one. That links to the medicinal product, meaning you can get all the ingredients of that product. This is if you want to do something simple, like a list of active substances. But if you want to know more, like exactly where is this ingredient inside, what is it part of, you do need the administered product or the manufactured item, and you need to go the full path via package, contained item, manufactured item, etc. Then you know which ingredient belongs to which manufactured item. But if you just want to have the active substance or the list of active substances, follow this shortcut that we did. Jean-Luc, I'm sorry, we're very short on time. Let's do that one quite quick.
Yeah, very rapidly, simply just want to say that once again, we have all the ingredients. We will have their active substances and excipients. So in the second row, we filter out the excipients and load into active ingredients variable all the active substances. And then using the shortcut Noel mentioned, we can directly obtain the list of the ingredients, active ingredients associated with a product by using the query in the third row. And then we choose an ingredient using the whatever elements we need, and we focus on its substance element. And starting from there, we can have the SMS code with the first query and the substance name with the second one. Once again, the change is only to the last element that we are querying to obtain one or the other. In both cases, always we will use the value attribute. One thing I forgot to mention is that in FHIR, all the data is always contained in attributes. So all your queries that will point to data will always have the last segment of the root starting with an @ sign. And Noel, I think we finished in time,
yes.
Right?
So we will skip the how to get the strength. This you can read the concentration, the presentation, high value ranges, operators. It is quite a challenge. It is quite interesting though, especially how the operator is implemented. Read the slides. We will not present it now, but you have it here. Now, to conclude the presentation for today, I must say this is the last training that we did have planned. If this was useful for you, if you are interested in this kind of information, you want us to continue, we have sent out a survey. It was a pleasure preparing all of this, but we do only want to invest the time if other agencies are really interested in this. So if you are, please fill out the survey. I know 12 NCAs already did, so thank you very much for that. Yes, just very briefly, what are we planning next? We're thinking about actually putting this into a GitHub, what you've just seen, so you have access to the code. And we will create profiles to validate this, and we do plan many other steps. I'm going to finish here with 6 minutes early to allow any kind of question that you have or comment that you want to give us, and I will look at the chat now.
Thank you. Before we get into the comments and people will leave the meeting, I really want to say thank you to Jean-Luc and Noel for this wow presentation. There's so much in it. We maybe do not understand at the moment, but you have your weekend before. There will no regulatory activities, so you have plenty of time to reread the presentation. So thanks a lot, Noel. And before we close, I would really say, you business colleagues, in the future, you can really stepwise challenge your IT colleagues and say, I would like to have this information from the application form in my IT system, and I do not want to type it anymore. And now it's possible to really do this in an automatic way. So please think which information would be useful in your IT system for reporting, for whatever you need to do in your case management tool. Get in contact with your IT. Use these slides to explain, this is where it is in the PDF form. This is where I've learned it's in FHIR. Now please copy paste the XPath from Gianluca. So this is possible, and I really would like to promote this opportunity in the network. Please also do the survey. I'm trying to convince Noel and Gianluca to have a follow-up session, but you need to support me in this. And we also want to introduce some kind of user group where clever people from business and IT will maybe also physically sit together and do some examples together to speed up the process of understanding. So please utilize the survey. Noel, are there any more questions we shall do during the session, the last 4 minutes?
I'm just reading through the chat. I don't think there are any large questions open, but if
Perfect.
there are, I would just open up.
Noel, there is one about the case in which there are multiple package quantities per package.
Okay.
The question was made. Let me search for it.
Yes, I believe this is a good question, because that is actually possible. You can have more than one quantity of a package.
FHIR also allows it.
FHIR allows it, yes. In the user interface, we concatenate them. So I would suggest to take both, and also if you want to show them somewhere, you concatenate them, but they are different. Well, the same element just can be there twice.
Yeah.
We have not found any examples where we have more than two, but in theory, it's possible.
Perfect. Then I think we end some minutes before. I think this is also a good idea. Thanks again, and thanks to for your interest in participation. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy what you have learned and dream of the minimizing your administrative effort. So thanks again. Thanks, Luke, also for helping us to organize this. And thanks to the Commission to fund the UNICOM project so that we were able to do that. So I said enough. Have a good weekend. See you next time, hopefully. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Yes, just wanted to add one more thing for. No, but that's fine.
Give a try, Luke. We are still some members here.
Okay, it's just that there's been for the people, but that's a bit more technical. So only for technical people. So the EMA session, which was organized a few weeks ago, is now available just from today on. I will also publish it on the UNICOM channel as a supplementary resource, but that's a bit more specific, of course. It's not for everybody. But that's the one on, just hold on, because I don't want to say stupid things, on just on the PMS and whoops, what was the title of it? Oops.
You have 30 seconds to go, Luke.
Yeah, sorry. No, I don't find it. That's the one on data migration. So the webinar data migration from which was released. So that one will be also on the UNICOM channel.
Perfect. And I think you dropped the link into the chat, correct?
Yeah, I will put the link into the chat.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Luke, again, and thanks all who are still joining. I'm now leaving. Bye.